We ask that you bless them and bless our church. Bless our bishop and our co-pastor, Shanae. Bless Pastor Greer, Pastor Cicely and Chrisley Knight, my husband, Elder Cunningham, Elder T, and myself, Mother Jackie. Father, I ask that you lift me up this evening. Give me strength. Give me courage. Father, give me wisdom. Give me knowledge. All these blessings I ask in thy holy name. Let everyone under the sound of my voice say amen, amen, and amen. This evening, I wanted to talk to you about a woman in the Bible. Most people, preachers, they speak about the men, but very seldom do you talk about a woman of the Bible. So, I will give you a little bit of an introduction. I will be speaking to you first about Naomi, widow. And excuse me, because my granddaughter's name is Naomi, and I keep calling Naomi, so you have to excuse me on that. Then Ruth's loyalty to her mother-in-law. Naomi and Ruth return to their own country. Ruth meets the love of her life, Boaz. Boaz redeems Ruth. Ruth and Boaz marry. The book of Ruth is a short book, very short, and it only takes 15 minutes to read. So while studying, even though it was short, it doesn't take a long time to read. I understand when my husband is studying for his word, he doesn't want me to keep distracting him. I don't do it on purpose, but I do it by habit because I'm so used to talking to him about things. And as I was studying, I kept getting phone calls, and I would lose my concentration, sense of concentration. So I understand, Elder. I won't do it no more. Okay. The reason I chose Ruth, when you're studying something, if it's interesting to you, you're really gonna dig deep and remember it. But the book of Ruth is a beautiful story of love, loyalty, and redemption. It tells the story of salvation of Ruth. Thank you. Okay. It tells the story of Ruth, of salvation of Ruth the Moabitess. Through her relationship with her mother-in-law, Naomi, Ruth learned about the living God and became his devoted follower. Abandoning her family and homeland, she's demonstrated both her love for her widowed mother-in-law and her faith in Israel's God. Okay. It tells the story of the salvation through her relationship with her mother-in-law, finding love and happiness, and becoming wealthy through marriage. There is nothing in the entire range of biography, sacred or profane, comparable to the simplicity, tenderness, and beauty of the story of Ruth, the young widow of Moab. I would like to ask you, how many women are in the Bible? Who knows? Nobody? There are 180, but how many actually have their own books? Two, Esther and Ruth. I'm going to be asking you a question. Both books have enchanted succeeding ages. Among the many typical features in the latter, the most outstanding is the composition of the true Church of Jesus Christ. In the days when judges ruled, sort of like today, we have a Supreme Court. There was a great famine in the land. There was a man named Elimelech. Elimelech had a wife. What was his wife's name? He said it. Tell them, Elder. Okay. See, y'all didn't know. Did you know? Okay. Elimelech and his wife, Naomi, left their homeland of Bethlehem, Judea, with their two sons. What was his son's name? We can't hear you. Okay. And they went into the country of Moab and lived there for 10 years. Naomi's husband, Elimelech, died, and she was left with her two sons and their wives. Soon after the death of her two sons and of her husband, she lost her two sons and was left alone with her two daughter-in-laws. Naomi became bitter with God after losing both her husband and sons. She felt like God was punishing her. Naomi and her daughter-in-laws returned from the country of Moab back to Bethlehem of Judea. Why did they go back there? Because they heard the Lord had visited his people and was giving them bread and preaching. Now, Naomi and her daughter-in-laws returned to Judea. Naomi told her two daughter-in-laws they could return to their families, for the Lord had blessed them, as they had went through the deaths of their husband. This is an example of love and loyalty, because Oprah left and went back home, but Ruth stayed with her mother-in-law. I never met my mother-in-law. I talked to her on the phone, but she died before I got a chance to meet her. She was only 54 years old. But I really believe in my heart we could have been close like Ruth and Naomi. You know, it's just a blessing to have a relationship with your mother-in-law like Ruth and Naomi. You know, it is. Sometimes we're not blessed with mother-in-laws that we love because of some of their ways. But still, sometimes we are blessed with mother-in-laws that we can love, and they love us. So it's just a blessing. And it's just a blessing to be like Ruth and not go back home to your family, but stay in a strange land with your mother-in-law because you loved her so much. So how many of you would do that? Amen. Naomi and Ruth, they returned to their own country, Bethlehem, beginning of the harvest. Ruth went into the fields to work. Now there was a man named Boaz who was Naomi's husband's kin. Who knows what kind of work Boaz did? Nobody? Yes, yes. He owned a lot of land. He had farmland. He was very, very wealthy. Now, while walking in the fields one day, he noticed a beautiful young lady. What was her name? Ruth. Pastor Sinead, the only one to know. And the others. Boaz had a good relationship with the people who worked his fields in a dark-shadowed period of Israelism history. As he walked the fields, meeting his workers, he would always stop by and say, "The Lord be with you." And the servants, workers would say, "The Lord bless you." That's the kind of relationship he had with his workers. He was a kind man. In our time, the strained relationship between management and employees would quietly be solved by the goodwill manifested in ancient days, the goodwill that Boaz had. While working the fields one day, Boaz came upon a beautiful young lady. He asked who she was. Boaz and Ruth became very close. And I want to tell you that it's a lot that I'm not teaching tonight because I can't get all of it. So I'm cutting some of it short, but you'll get the general idea. And I ask that you read the book of Ruth for yourself, and you will enjoy it as I did. Now at this time, although Ruth and Naomi husbands owned land, but back then women couldn't own land. So they could own it, but they couldn't do anything with it. That was the rule. So what did Boaz do to claim the land for them? He went to the judges, like the Supreme Court, and found out he couldn't buy the land for them. So his friend, in my words, his friend, I knew it was, bought the land and gave it to Boaz for free. Boaz redeemed Ruth and Naomi's land and then became her husband. All had sinned. And what I mean by that, Ruth and Boaz, they kind of had an affair before they were married. So they had sinned. Both Jews and Gentiles, but Jesus died for all. Ruth was a Gentile, Boaz was a Hebrew. But even though they were different religions, Jesus still died for all. So, to me, in life, we can all have our own religion, But that doesn't mean that Jesus, if you're not one religion, God's not going to bless you because you aren't this religion. He died for all of us, no matter what religion we are. And all God's church is composed of regenerated Jews and Gentiles who he called his bride at that time. The marriage bells of Ruth at Bethlehem were the same bells which sounded at the marriage, the supper of the Lamb. Loyalty. From Ruth's outstanding quality of unselfishness and loyalty, we learn that such virtues are the only foundation upon combining as it does all the traits of human life and happiness can be built without abiding friendship. Home ties are loose and social structure are weak. Ruth teaches us that attractive graciousness is worth developing, and racial hatred and religious bigotry can be solved by a right relationship to him who made of one blood to all nations. God smiled upon the honorable marriage of Boaz and Ruth, the virtuous Ruth, and blessed them with a son named Obed, who became the father of Jesse, who in turn became the father of King David. And that's the end of my story. So anybody have any questions? No? Well, I took. Okay. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes, it was a beautiful love story, actually. And there was a lot of things. I thought that I was, when you're writing, you think you're writing a lot, that you're going to take up a lot of time. But actually, I found out just late today. I was reading it, and I had my husband time me, and we found out at 5 o'clock I needed to put more little details in that I left out. But I did leave out where Naomi, when she went back home, she changed her name to Maya.
I like the part where in the, I think it's the second chapter, verse 4, the relationship between boss and workers.
Mm-hmm.
How, what he said to them, how the Lord be with you, and they answered him, the Lord bless thee.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't that be nice today if there was a relationship between bosses and what they call underlings or whatever back then? But the relationship between the staff and him was godly.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see godly relationships in the workplace anymore.
Right.
You see backbitings and all that. And that's another reason why Boaz was rich, because they
God.
honored him.
Mm-hmm.
So if you bring that into the church, when you honor your leaders
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen.
it has a twofold story. This little short book of Ruth is full. It's just like you said. Is packed with love, a love story. Is packed with sorrow because Naomi lost her sons.
Mm-hmm.
One was Ruth's wife. One was Oprah's wife, husband rather, and Ruth's husband. And so it's packed with sorrow, love, and then reconciliation between Naomi and Ruth. Entreat me not to leave you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me stay with you. I don't want to leave you.
Uh-huh.
You're my mother-in-law. I'm going to stay with you and take care of you. Probably her family had, back then everybody had several children.
Uh-huh.
So it's a possibility that there were several children, sisters and siblings that Ruth had, and Naomi had no one. Her sons had died. All she had was herself.
Mm-hmm.
So if Ruth hadn't done what the Lord put on her heart to do, to stay with Naomi, to serve her and wait on her, to bless her, she wouldn't have got Boaz.
Yeah, God
Honey.
blessed her.
Yeah.
She went from being poor to wealthy. Very
Yes,
wealthy.
very wealthy, out of obedience.
Yes, in
And
fact.
I know the scriptures doesn't say exactly. She just told her go lay at his feet.
Uh-huh. I didn't,
Yeah.
I kind of skipped that.
Yeah, it just says that she told him to go and lay at his feet, verse 14 in chapter 3, go lay at his feet, and that's all she told him. I read somewhere where it says that she put on perfume and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't know about all that, but it just says that she said, put up, go lay at his feet, and when he rose, he wouldn't know. They said, here it is, that lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. That tells me, now what do you think that means, Bishop? One could know another. In verse 14, anyone just beside Bishop, I want to know because Mother brought up a good point. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. So what do you think happened?
Some things happen, but it would be an embarrassment for the people to
No.
know anything.
Uh-huh.
In relationships, especially among the Jews, everything was like a death sentence. So some things better not told, so there would be no judgment upon her. So actually, what she did was a good thing,
Yes.
in the sense that she followed what she was told to do.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It's basically innocence opposed to traditional practice that could cause her to be killed. So I just think the Bible is letting us know that there was a violation, but obviously God honored it because eventually he ended up getting married.
Well, she did it because her mother-in-law told her to do that. She told her to wait until his belly was full and he was full of wine. Well, in other words,
Drunk.
yeah.
She got him drunk.
Yeah, and then she did that, So she was obedient to her mother-in-law. She's the one that told Ruth to do it, and she did what she told her to do, So, yeah.
Funny, you reading was that they actually making a movie of this. Like, it should be coming the end of this month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're actually making a movie.
That would be good, Pastor Cicely. Watch it.
Oh, I hope it would be. Yeah, Facebook, but it should be good. I think it probably sounds like Tyler Perry could be doing
I
it.
think he is.
It may be him. Yeah,
Yeah, he is. Well, that should be kind of distasteful. But what a good teaching. That brought
Thank
out-
you.
Jews had so many rules about courtships and engagements. They didn't have time for all that.
Yeah. Well, Naomi knew that Boaz was rich, he was in her family, and she didn't want that man to slip away from Ruth. They were already eating somewhat, but like you said, if go back to your land, I'm going back to your land where you're eating a little bit, and I'll help you. And look what they got. They got
Yeah.
everything they ever wanted.
Yeah, God bless.
Boaz got a mother-in-law, a wife, later on more children. God will give you
And Naomi got a,
Part was, even though the relationship between Boaz and him, look at what lineage came out of that.
Yes,
So that lineage is real important. You know, we might say, oh, that's terrible, but no, look where Jesus came from.
yes.
yeah,
What we might see started off wrong, turned into right.
Turned into right. That's
yeah.
David,
Sit in judgment, I guess.
yeah, you can't.
Well,
See the end, in the fourth chapter, it tells the lineage, who beget who. And at the
mhm.
end, Obed beget Jesse, and Jesse beget David, and
Yeah, and went
Jesus came
on.
out of the lineage of David, and so there it is, as Bishop said.
Yeah, I think I read that. But I didn't go into all of that
Yeah,
on and on, on and on. But I enjoyed it.
he enjoyed you.
Well, I was nervous and I prayed about it. I prayed about it this morning, and I prayed about it this evening, and I just said, God, just bless me to give them a word. And
I've been praying for you all week.
so, well, thank you. So